Who did we think we were, anyway? I'm surprised they took any notice of us at all. We were miners' wives, about as ordinary as you can get. There was me, Dorothy McFarland.
The project began in 2010 or 2011. It was a process of accumulating all the documents, synthesizing, writing about it, and then contacting Julia Jamison, who's the director, who recommended the scriptwriter, the playwright, Jennifer Wynne Webber.
It's extraordinary, these typewritten newsletters that tied everyone together across the country and across the continent. There was masses of research. It was a real struggle for me to figure out, how much do I have to fit in here? How much of it, once I immerse myself, once I immerse the characters in that, how much can I trust that it will come out just of their character, just the way they speak, and trust that.
And we all lived in Kirkland Lake, Ontario back then, perched atop the solid rock of the Canadian Shield.
Not that solid, not with all the gold mine shafts running through it.
What drew me was the fact that it was the women who had been left out in the history of the 1941 strike and the subsequent union activities. This was the Mine Mill and Smelter Workers Union. The women were the wives and the mothers and the daughters of the miners, and they weren't the union members, but they were very involved in organizing the union. They did all the traditional women's work, like organizing dinners and Christmas parties and things like that, but they also had their own political agenda and political activities. They fundraised so that they could carry out their own activities. So they had a kind of an autonomy and a political life that really hadn't been documented very well. And I was interested in bringing this element of the history forward.
Strike set for noon, stop. Mm-hmm. All members to be out, stop. Please watch for further notifications, stop. And that's what would get sent out.
For me, the key thing was finding out who these women are and having them become so real to me that I could hear their voices unmistakably.
We haven't forgotten, we're all in this together. Every one of us on this earth.
And somehow zeroing in on that beating heart of the real characters, if you really stick with that as a writer for theater in particular, I think hopefully you can't go that far off the mark.
Before it would happen, the men would hear it snap, huh? Snap, snap, snap.
That's the rock talking.
It's when you don't hear it talking, you get worried.
That means the pressure's really building up.
And when it talks again, that's it. Sounds like a pistol shot.
As a writer, what I become very interested in is exploring and exploiting in a way that real interchange between audience and the characters in a play. And in this play, what I end up doing is playing with that quite overtly, with them having these layers of story where they're in 1941 just interacting with each other, but also where they're also dealing with the audience in front of them as a real entity telling the story, being aware of telling that story. And I think it does work for this particular story because these women would not pass up an opportunity to deal with, contend with, make direct contact with an audience like this. They'd want to bring them on side and get them joining the march.
It was like our men were going off to war every single day. Never knew if they'd come back.
Put solid rock under enough pressure.
Think solid glass cube held tight in the vise. More than 27,000 pounds of pressure.
And eventually it'll shatter.
And we don't just mean a crack here or there, or a little piece or two breaking off.
We mean shattered.
A whole slab, or part of the rock ceiling.
All coming down at once.
Crashing down hard.
I think theater, because it is an embodied form of communication, it's so much more a fuller form of communication. I think that it reaches people in different ways and reaches other kinds of people. Academic articles are generally only read by academics. And I thought that this part of our labor history was important enough that more than academics needed to know about it and would be interested in knowing about it. project.
But what if something...
Oh, they'll let us know what's happening as soon as there's anything to know, bloody hell.
But those are company men, right? All gathered over there.
These women, I mean, their stories were hidden in archives and they were never publicized, and they weren't women that wanted to be, you know, they didn't show off and be like, hey guys, look what we did. And therefore, if we weren't doing this, would anyone know?
Most people I've talked to, when I mention kind of that it's based on history and that women in the 1940s, how they helped support their men in building the beginnings of unions and workers' rights, health and safety, they're usually intrigued. Maybe that's just the people I was talking to, but that seemed to be the way to kind of entice them. The history connection seemed to fascinate them.
How about the list, Dorothy, with all of that on it, our accomplishments?
Oh, be sure to put all of us on it.
No, there's already a list and we're all on it, that's for sure.
What do you mean?
I mean, the RCMP cut that list for us.
History tends to be written with a male focus, and that goes for labor history as well. So we know about what the men did in the various strikes, but we don't know about the role that women played, both in terms of being strikers themselves, but also the ladies' auxiliary. No one will ever look down on the ladies' auxiliary after seeing this play.
The way the history of the women's movement was portrayed tonight, it's so important that everybody has an opportunity to experience this. It's got such an impact, and the story is so incredible. Nobody in this room is gonna forget anything they saw tonight.
You know, I'm not naive, Dorothy. You know, I knew the companies were against us, against the union, but until today, I never dreamed that they'd actually try to kill anyone.
I don't think my kids had this kind of an in-depth education around the role that women played in the development of the social underpinnings of our society. And so I think that this is really important history that needs to be widely shared and known by everyone in society.
They don't recognize the women's roles in society, in every movement. So it's really important to educate, what's called popular education. What the play is doing is popular education, telling people what the women's role was in society and in every movement, especially on the union.
Plus, this time I was even less afraid than the first time. I think the Sudbury police might have even been afraid of me.
Okay, Poppy, now you're telling stories for sure.
Well, you weren't there, not in Sudbury.
I think we're going there to be entertained, and we actually were given a fabulous lesson to a very captive audience. And when the play was done, it's like, oh, I can't even imagine what I've just learned. You couldn't have taught this to me in an academic setting. I learned through the arts.
I mean, I think the arts, acting and drama is really a great way for people to actually connect with our history. It's much more engaging, and I think it sticks with people more if you're actually experiencing the emotion attached to people who are playing a role of something that actually occurred in the past. For me, as a visual learner, it'll stick with me. It's more than reading it in a book.
That was us all over, wasn't it? Chipper enough on the surface, terrified down below. Not that we'd have admitted that at the time.
There is that connection with the audience. And to me, that's what live theater offers. Live human beings sitting there in the audience, having a visceral experience with the actors, experience something on stage. It's something that doesn't happen any other way.
Standing up for our families!
Standing up for ourselves!
It felt like we were changing the world.
It felt like that because we were.
It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So professionally well done, and tells a story that cannot be told by a speech, can't be told by reading a book, can't be told by doing a PowerPoint of pictures. It's a story that has to be told in drama, because that's what's going to grab your heart, it's going to grab your soul, and that's what's going to grab your back.
9 lives, I swear, that man.
You can read all the books you want as far as dates, times, places, but when you put those dates, times, places, all those facts into showing me that this is a human being, it just makes it real. This happened, and I'm not just reading it in a book, I'm seeing it with my very own eyes. It's an experience.
Alphonse! Yeah, he's okay. Thank God. Cecile's husband is a cage tender. So he'll know what there is to know.
The overarching goal was to first of all unearth the unknown history, and then to bring it forward to audiences. And I think that we've already accomplished a great deal on that front. When women see their own history reflected on the stage, it's very, very powerful for them, because our labor history has been written by men, for men, and about men. So women have been left out.
So there you have it. And I'm sure if you asked us back then, we would have claimed we were for ordinary women.
Perfectly content, faithful, funny, and very grateful people who were
singers.
I was going to say the last people to go around stirring up trouble.
What live theater can offer you is the chance to actually experience those moments of real decision making and searching and realization unfolding before you in real time. Again, that beating heart. And when you have that, then you've got theater.
It can still use you. Your minds.
Your hands, your hearts.
Your glowing hearts. Best of all, we changed labor law right across this country.
We did.
We finally got the law we've been fighting for. A law that forced companies to recognize unions, on the books in every province by 1948.
And it happened because of us. Because of Kirkland Lake.
What we went through, our suffering, the whole country could see it was wrong. So those seeds of justice we planted, they grew after all, huh?